Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'm Jill Bloom, group publisher of Walls and Ceilings, and welcome to If Walls Could Talk. I am so excited because today we've got with us Trent Cotney, partner of Adams and Reese. Trent, great to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Jill, thanks for having me.
Well, Trent, since we have talked last, there's a lot that's been going on.
Yeah,
And
a
so
lot.
it's good to catch up with you. First and foremost, we got to talk about TopBuild and QXO because there's been, of course, a huge acquisition came across on a Sunday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and everybody's phone started blowing up. But what are you hearing? There's a lot of concerns out there. What are contractors? What are they asking? And it's clearly making your phone blow up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, there was a press release that came out not too long ago that talked about QXO, who is well-known, very large, publicly traded supplier distributor of construction materials, acquiring TopBuild, which is got different arms, but there is an installation arm contained within TopBuild. I know individuals at both companies, and they're a lot smarter than I am, so I'm sure there's going to be more coming out on this. But almost immediately when the press release came out, I had a variety of calls and concerns from a lot of different stakeholders within the industry, and the concerns varied from concerns about data sharing. What happens if I am a contractor that uses QXO? Is my data going to be shared with TopBuild, who is a potential competitor? There are concerns about that competition element. To what extent will TopBuild have access to information that could, hurt a contractor's ability to bid or submit proposals or make them less competitive? And then sort of an overarching thing, anytime you have vertical integration like this, is, what efforts have been done to ensure that there's nothing that's anti-competitive or restraint of trade? Obviously, both are publicly traded companies. Again, people a lot smarter than I am work for both of them, so I'm sure they've gone through this analysis and we'll hear more about it. But there are some initial concerns. Anytime you're doing something that's different, you're going to have people push back. But I do think it's a sign of the times. I think you're going to continue to see vertical integration. It may be, on the manufacturer side, it may be on distribution, or, who knows, maybe some different model that we're not aware of. But yeah, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of concerns. But I guess we'll kind of wait and see what transpires.
Yeah, like you're saying, I think the biggest piece of it is it's been a long time since somebody has acquired somebody who also does installations.
Yeah, yeah, and the other thing is it's not final yet, right? I mean,
Right.
there's still things going on. The dust hasn't settled. There's just a lot of stuff up in the air. So
Yeah.
I'm not making assumptions. I don't know how it's going to end up or what it's going to look like. But from an industry standpoint, I've been hearing rumblings of consolidation, vertical integration like this for a while, and I do think that as we continue to see the rise of technology and our systems becoming easier to install and more automatic, I think you're going to see even more of this. So it'll be interesting to see what this looks like a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. But
Yeah, absolutely.
never a dull moment, right?
Never, right? That's for sure. Well, something else that's important for us to talk about is just contract provisions.
Sure.
Trent, and it sounds like you've got some good lessons that you want to make sure you share with everybody because it's a big deal.
Yeah, and I preach contracts all the time, and our listeners know that. They know I talk about the importance of it, that you always lead with customer service, but the contract is that trench that you fall back into when customer service fails. But one of the things I want to let our listeners understand and know is that the contract provisions that you have give you the leverage, give you the strength to negotiate a resolution. And a lot of times, regardless of whether it's in litigation or it's pre-suit or whatever it might be, you may have a customer or general contractor or whoever you've contracted with that's unhappy with things. And it's easy to get them off center if you can point to the disclaimer that says you're not liable for that, the waiver of consequential damages, the notice provisions that require very strict notice of claim, all those types of things. They're leverage points. That's how you should look at these contract provisions. The goal is not to make new law, right? New law is expensive. The goal is to settle so you can sleep good at night and move on to the next battle. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have to go to war. We go to war daily. Got no problem with that. You and I were talking beforehand. I enjoy it. Even though I've been doing it for a while, I still enjoy going to war, and that's something that we do daily. But from a business perspective, if you have that leverage, oftentimes you can put these things to rest and move on to the next challenge.
Well, like you've always said, Trent, the person with the best paper trail always wins.
Absolutely.
So,
That is the story in construction. It is a paper-driven environment, whether that's physical paper or digital. That is how you tell your story in construction.
I love it.
Mhm.
So so I guess if you don't have that paper trail, you're kind of in trouble.
Yeah, and you really need to think about advocacy. One of the things that I was sitting around, like you, I travel the U.S. and I was sitting around talking to some contractors, and I said, look, one of the biggest problems I see is these contractors. They'll submit change orders or RFIs, requests for information, or whatever it might be, and they're just pushing paper, right? They're not telling a story. You need to assume that an arbitrator, a judge, or a jury is going to read that change order, and it needs to be as obvious to them why you are entitled to it as it is the person you're sending it to. So advocate in your change orders, advocate in your construction documents, because those may be exhibits, right? You never know. And that's one of the things I think they can, contractors can do to help better document their position.
Yeah, and you were also saying, Trent, it's really important to have the right lawyer. I mean, everybody has different personalities, and you got to make sure you got somebody in your corner that's going to go, like you were saying, that's going to go to war for you.
Yeah, legal counsel is like an accountant or a doctor. You've really got to find somebody you like. And this isn't a sales pitch for me. I'm talking generally, regardless of what legal
Yeah,
counsel you're getting. Vet them, talk to them, recognize that there's always going to be certain parameters. All lawyers that are any good are busy. They've all got issues. There's all things going on, right? But you want to have somebody that understands what you want to accomplish. There are some customers, some clients that want real aggression. There are others that want resolution, right? You've got to find a personality that fits you. And it's a very, there are a lot of different types out there. So make sure that you're vetting not only for experience and qualifications, but also personality to make sure you've got a good fit for you. Because really, a lawyer is just an advisor. I always say a lot of what I do is business therapy. That's clients call me with problems. It's our job to solve those problems, right? And you want to have somebody that you feel you can trust and talk to if you've got an issue.
I love it. Well, always great advice, Trent. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your insights with the industry. If anybody has any questions, how do they find you?
Sure, they can always email me, trent.cotney@arlaw.com, or hit me up on social anywhere at Trent Cotney.
Sounds great. And if anybody needs us, it's roofingcontractor.com or wconline.com. Follow us on all our social media channels, and we can't wait to talk to you soon. Thanks again, Trent.
Thank you.